I'm the only child in my family. I am born with a disability. My legs were cramped, and I had difficulty taking care of myself. Before I was born, my parents had a son and a daughter. For genetic reasons, both were very sick and had severe disabilities. They lost their lives within the first few months. I often wished I had died as a baby too, like my brother and sister. My childhood, up until my teenage years, was filled with hardship. But over time, what was painful for others became normal for me. I got used to the situation. My father owned a small coffee shop, and I sometimes helped him. We served breakfast, lunch, and dinner for travelers passing through. And the story I want to tell you goes back to those days, to when I was 21 years old. At that time, I worked in my father's coffee shop, serving tea to travelers. In the beginning, it was difficult. I used to spill half the tea while carrying the tray, but soon I learned how to do my job properly. One day, after many years, my father decided to take a vacation and bring my mother with him. He thought about closing the coffee shop during their trip. He knew I couldn't manage everything on my own because of my disability. There would be too much work. So, he hired a man named Mo to help me. Even though I wanted to work alone to prove to my father that I was capable, I realized it wasn't so bad to have someone helping. Mao was 30 years old. He was a little short and thin, and no one believed he was really 30. After my parents left, I had a good first day at the shop. Everything went smoothly. Mao helped me until the end of the day. We stayed until 11:30 p.m. serving customers. That night, like every other night, at exactly 11:30, I put the money in the bag and closed the shop. But just as we were about to walk home, a few customers arrived. They asked us to reopen the coffee shop, but we had already shut everything down, and I had turned off the equipment. I apologized to them, and we left. As we walked home, Mu said it was wrong not to open for them. We could have served them. I replied, all the shops around here are closed. We can't stay here alone. Mao smiled and said, think about it. If we kept the shop open for 2 or 3 more hours, imagine how many more customers would come. If we adjust our closing time from 11:30 p.m. to 2 a.m., we could make more money. When your parents come back from their trip, Mao said, they'll be proud of you. I answered in a soft voice, but it's dangerous. This coffee shop is near an empty road. We're far from the police station and any houses. What if, in the middle of the night, in all this solitude, we get robbed? He laughed and said, where are the thieves? Only travelers come here. But Mao's words were slowly becoming more persuasive and a bit obsessive. I looked at him and asked, so what now, Mao? He replied, from tomorrow until your father returns, we'll keep the shop open until 2 a.m. and you won't tell anyone. I was reluctant, but I felt forced to agree. The next day I did as Mao said. I didn't close the shop until midnight, and in those extra 3 hours we made a surprising amount of money. I realized something. At night, more travelers than ever stopped by. They needed food, tea, a place to rest. We stayed open until 2 a.m. Then Mu said, if we stayed even longer, we'd still have customers. And so it went. 4 nights passed, and we worked late each time. On the morning of the 5th day, I went to find Mao so we could head to the shop together. But, as luck would have it, Mu had twisted his leg and couldn't walk. He told me last night something happened. My leg's injured. I can't work today. Now I had to go to the coffee house alone. That day I prepared everything myself. I set the tables, boiled the water, arranged the chairs, and then I sat quietly waiting for customers. The absence of Mu was harder than I thought it would be. At one point, I had to make coffee and tea for several people all at once. It was exhausting, but somehow, with great effort, I managed to handle it all alone. That night I decided, just like the previous 4 nights, to keep the shop open late. Mr. Mezfar, our neighbor who ran the small grocery store nearby, came to me around 9:27 p.m., just as he was closing up. He was a respected man in our area, quiet but kind. He looked at me with concern and said, I heard you've been keeping the coffee house open late these nights. I shrugged and replied, yeah, what's the problem? For a moment he hesitated. Then Max, yes, that was his real name, said softly, Did your father not tell you anything? I frowned. Tell me what? He opened his mouth like he was about to speak, but then he closed it again. Instead, he said something vague. If you ever need anything, let me know. Then he turned and left, but his words stayed with me. They unsettled me. Why did he stop himself? What was he hiding? Why say something halfway, only to pull back? My thoughts were restless for the next hour. I kept replaying Max's face and those words in my mind. I tried to shake it off and focus on my work. There were many customers that night. It was exactly 11 p.m. when a man entered the coffee house. The shop was quiet, just me and the stranger. He was alone. He didn't speak right away. There was something unusual about him, something eerie. He had a strange, mysterious face, and his eyes didn't blink much. He wore a long, black coat with sharp edges and a scarf wrapped tightly around his neck, half of his face hidden beneath it. He had black gloves on his hands. He entered the coffee house without saying a single word and silently walked over to a table and sat down. I approached him and said, "Hello." He didn't respond. I whispered to myself, "What a strange man." Still, I smiled and asked politely, "What would you like to eat or drink?" He looked at me with a distant, almost unreadable expression and finally said, "A cup of coffee." There was something about him, a look, a presence, I couldn't quite describe. He didn't seem ordinary. For a moment, fear gripped me. Could he be a criminal? Was he planning to take advantage of my solitude in the late hour? Maybe he intended to rob me, empty the register, and vanish into the night. I thought it best not to delay. So I quickly rushed to the kitchen, poured him a cup of coffee, and returned. But when I came back, he was gone. His chair was empty. I looked around, confused. Maybe he went to the bathroom? I turned my head to check, and froze. He was standing right behind me, so close, too close. My breath caught in my throat. For a second, I couldn't move. He simply sat down again as if nothing had happened. I handed him the coffee, trying to keep my hands from shaking. He drank it slowly. I asked, "Would you like another cup?" He didn't answer. But the atmosphere shifted. It grew heavier, more terrifying. Two of the last remaining customers got up and left. Now it was just me and him. And the silence. He stood, taking a few steps toward me. It felt like he had been waiting for everyone else to leave. At that time of night, there was no other shop open. Only mine. He looked at me again as if he wanted to say something, but instead he turned away and walked toward the window. He stood there for a few seconds, looking out into the darkness. Then, without a word, he returned to his table, placed some money down, and left. I exhaled deeply. Relief flooded me. Inside, I was quietly celebrating. He's gone. About 15, maybe 20 minutes later, a car pulled up in front of the coffee house. Several large men stepped out, their heads turning as they scanned the area. Then they entered. One of them called me over, ordered something, and casually asked, "Are you here alone?" I nodded slowly, trying to hide my unease. I turned and went to the kitchen to prepare the order. But then, I felt a hand clamp down over my mouth. A voice whispered harshly in my ear, "Don't do anything. Just do what I say or you'll be putting your life in jeopardy." My heart raced. I nodded, terrified. The grip on my mouth loosened. "Don't turn around. Just finish preparing the order," he said quietly. I obeyed. I came out of the kitchen, casting a suspicious glance at the men. One of them had somehow entered the kitchen, but how did he get in without me noticing? I placed their order carefully, my hands trembling. Just then, another car pulled up outside. Two men got out. One of them was holding a suitcase. Without hesitation, one of the men entered the coffee house and went straight to the table where the others sat. Suddenly, everything went dark. The lights were gone. The shop drowned in blackness. Panicked, I ran to the kitchen, thinking the fuse had blown. Just as I reached for the switchboard, a voice echoed, quiet but firm. "Leave the shop, immediately." I froze. I started, but the voice interrupted again, even more urgently. "Leave the shop, as fast as you can." That was enough. Without thinking, I bolted through the back door and ran out into the night. I was completely disoriented. It felt like someone had struck me on the head, my thoughts scattered, my breath sharp and shallow. How I wished Mao was with me. My eyes twitched uncontrollably. My body shook with fear. But I didn't dare go back. Not yet. Not until I knew what was happening. Then, bang, bang. The sound of sirens sliced through the silence. Police cars flashing and wailing surrounded the coffee house in a blink. I watched from a distance, completely stunned, as officers flooded the place with light and precision. They stormed in, and moments later they led the 4 men out, one by one, cuffed and defeated. Everything returned to normal, but not for me. As I stood there, confused by the turn of events, the man in black, who I had feared, approached me once again. His dark eyes, sharp under the brim of his hat, held an unreadable expression. "You don't need to worry," he said, his voice calm but authoritative. "That was part of the plan. We were watching the entire time." I blinked, unsure of how to process his words. "What do you mean? You were watching me?" I asked, still trying to wrap my head around the situation. "Yes," he replied. "It was crucial for you to stay at the coffee shop that night. We needed someone there to act as the distraction, and you did it perfectly." "But I didn't know," I protested. "I was just running my shop." He nodded slightly. "Exactly. It was never meant for you to know. You did your part without realizing it, but it helped us corner the criminals and put an end to their activities." I felt a chill run down my spine. "So you were using me?" I asked, the words coming out more bitter than I intended. The man in black paused, his gaze softening slightly. "Not exactly. You were just in the right place at the right time. We had our eyes on those men long before you ever opened your shop that night." My heart raced as I tried to make sense of everything. "And why didn't you tell me what was going on? Why all the secrecy?" He stepped closer, his voice low. "Because if we had, you would have been in danger. It's better you didn't know. We needed you to stay calm, to be oblivious to what was really happening around you." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his words. The whole situation had felt like a dream, or perhaps a nightmare I couldn't wake from. "And now? What happens now?" The man in black gave a small, reassuring smile. "Now, you go back to your life. Tell your father about the damages. We'll cover them. You've done more than enough already." The next morning, I stood by the coffee shop's shattered window, staring out at the police cars now gone. My hands were still shaking, but I could feel a calm settling in, like I'd just walked through the eye of a storm. The darkness of the night was behind me, and the world was slowly returning to its usual hum. But I couldn't shake what happened. I had been so close to danger. Had I not listened into that voice, had I not run when I did, what would have happened to me? To my father's shop? Max approached me with a serious look on his face. "I know you're confused," he said, lowering his voice. "There are some things I need to explain." We stood at the corner, away from the wreckage, as Max filled me in. "You're probably wondering why I didn't tell you everything," Max continued. "I couldn't risk it. You don't know the half of what's going on. Those men, they were the ones who robbed the bank last year. I didn't realize where they were hiding until I accidentally overheard them discussing their next big score. The shelter, it was a perfect cover-up." I blinked. "But why didn't you tell me earlier?" Max looked over his shoulder, ensuring no one was listening. "Because there's someone more dangerous than those guys.